My name is Josh. I'm from India. My topic for today is 5 modern mistakes. Now, I don't want to talk about mistakes because I'm a negative person or because I love to criticize the world. That's not the agenda. I think there are some truths, there are some insights, important and true insights, which get forgotten in the waves of time for whatever reason. And as a society, as individuals, we start following through lies, and that is hurtful to you as an individual, to you as a society. So we are going to discover 5 lies today and 5 old truths from old books. So that's the rough agenda. These are the 5 mistakes I want to talk about. The mistake about openness. You know, we hear that keep an open mind, keep an open heart, be open. Should we be open really that much all the time? We'll discuss. The mistake about power. Power is a dirty word. How many of you have heard the phrase power hungry? You know, power hungry? Have you heard the phrase? You know, we use it to describe, successful people or politicians or businessmen. Is power a bad thing? We'll discuss. The mistake about data. People love data today. Big data, the bigger, the better. The mistake about beauty. And the mistake about knowledge. So, about me, I'm 26 years old. I'm from India, as you heard from our host. This is what India looks like. It's a great country. I tweet a lot. I have tweeted. This is my Twitter profile. So I've tweeted 20,000 times, which you can see at the top, which is a lot. I'm on Twitter for 12 hours a day. It's a great platform, very interesting. You discover new ideas there. These are some of the people I talk about: Nietzsche, Napoleon, the French king. We'll be discussing them. And I like to think of myself as a restoration philosopher. So this is a word that I coined 3 days ago, so I don't expect you to know what it means. But there is such a thing as a restoration architect, and what they do is they find abandoned old buildings, like the one you see at the top. This is from New York, and then they restore them to some of their former glory. And a lot of these projects happen around the world. So what a restoration philosopher does is we find old, abandoned, forgotten books, and we read them, and we try to reintroduce the world to their wisdom. So that's the agenda for today. 5 modern mistakes. Time to get started. The mistake about power. So the mistake about power is that power is bad for you. Now I'm going to show you a quote. You have probably seen this quote before, and if you agree with it, just raise your hands. So the quote is this: power tends to corrupt, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Great men are almost always bad men. Do you agree? Everyone disagree? Oh, you agree. OK, there are a few. So the thing about power is that, it's not just something that people frown upon in Europe or Asia. It's sort of a global thing. So this is a Japanese proverb. The nail that sticks out gets hammered down. So it's all the way from Japan. Totally different civilization, nothing to do really with Europe or even India, but they kind of believe in the same thing. In Scandinavia, you have the law of Jonte. I'm probably not pronouncing it right, but it's called the law of Jonte. And is this something? Oh, this is not a. So this was supposed to be a video, and this was a Scandinavian actor talking about how he doesn't show his acting awards in his living room because that's too arrogant, and in his culture, that is frowned upon. So arrogance seems to be something that people have a problem with around the world. There's this environmental slogan that you must have heard: reduce your footprint. Have you heard that? Reduce your footprint. OK, interesting. I'll try to connect it. So and then there are books like Ego is the Enemy. Has anyone read that book? Ego is the Enemy? All right, awesome. And do you guys know about this book? Small is Beautiful. It's sort of an older book, So if it was just one of these things, it's probably not important or significant. But it's all of it. Japan, Scandinavia, these books, Ego is the Enemy, reduce your footprint. Do you begin to see the theme? Do you begin to see the theme? The theme is power is bad for you. You need to shrink. Reduce your footprint. So the only way I can reduce my footprint is by becoming smaller, right? And if I become bigger, if I become more powerful, my footprint expands, and that's a bad thing. I believe this is wrong. I believe that power is great for you. I think that you already know that in your hearts. So this is a quote I'll come back to, but I want you to look at these pictures, right? So on the top left, you have a musician. How many of you enjoy music? Everyone enjoys music. What do you enjoy about music? It's a guitarist with so much power over his fingertips that he can produce music out of it. I can't do that with my fingertips. I don't have that power over my fingers. But a guitarist does, a drummer does, a pianist does. So what you actually like when you raise your hand is the power that this artist has over his fingers. Then you have football, you have weightlifting. How many of you are into sports? Right? If you don't actively play it, maybe you enjoy watching it. But what do you enjoy in sports? You enjoy the power that some people have over their feet, as footballers do. You enjoy the power that some people can exercise over weights. So if we spend trillions of dollars every year as a planet watching sports, enjoying sports, we are admiring power when we do that. You have the beautiful Budapest Parliament, which I'm going to visit tomorrow. But what is a building like that but proof of man's power over gravity? Man's power over bricks and mortar and cement. Rain falls on that building and snow falls on that building and really hefty winds hit that building all year long and it stands there. It is grounded, it's powerful. So power is this really, it's a taboo thing. If you ask a child, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'm sure all of you were asked that question when you were little babies, and maybe you're still asked that question. Whoever says, I want to be powerful? You know, people say, well, I want to enjoy my work, I want to find my passion, I want to be a sportsman, I want to be a musician. No one says, I want to be a powerful person, I want to be a powerful man. That's taboo. It should not be taboo. I think this is a new mistake that we are making. This is G.K. Chesterton, and he was a British philosopher, and here he's talking about old humility and new humility. If you look at the sentence from, for the old humility made a man doubtful about his efforts, which might make him work harder. But the new humility makes a man doubtful about his aims, which will make him stop working altogether. So the new humility is toxic. That is the claim that he's making, and I think he's right. There is a form of humility that just shrinks you up and stops you from being active and positive, and that's bad. Old humility good, new humility bad. To be human is to gain and exercise power in beautiful new ways. That's actually what separates us from the rest of the animal kingdom. The mistake about power is bad for you. The truth is power is great for you. The mistake about openness. Openness is a virtue. This is the mistake, I think. Do you guys agree with this quote? Who agrees with this? A mind is like a parachute. It doesn't work if it's not open. Who agrees with this? One, all right, okay, this is better. More resistance, I like it. I'll try to convince you why this is false, okay? So these are some, these are some Wikipedia screenshots, really. Let me try to explain to you why I put them here. In India, we have a thing called reservations, which is basically that if you did not score enough to get into a university, you might still get in if you are part of a protected class. So if you were theoretically oppressed in the future, in the past rather, you get special admissions. It's exactly like affirmative action in the United States, where you leave aside merit and you openness is a virtue, you open the gates of the university to people who did not score enough, but who are part of a protected class for some reason. Okay, and that's a book, Open Borders. Borders should be open. Haven't you heard? Open Borders, the Science and Ethics of Immigration. The most interesting of these screenshots is the one at the top, is the one at the bottom right. So do you guys recognize this? Do you guys recognize this artwork? It's called The Fountain by Marcel Duchamp, who was a French artist. And he took a urinal, and he labeled it Fountain, and he put it in a museum about 100 years ago. And this is considered an artwork. Think about how wide the definition of art had to be opened up for a literal urinal to be put inside a museum. Now, what I'm trying to point out is a trend. What I'm trying to point out is a broader social trend. And I believe openness can also be a vice. So again, we're back to this old philosopher. He has this great quote. The object of opening the mind, as of opening the mouth, is to shut it again on something solid. All right? Now, I want to compare this quote with the quote from before. So when you guys saw this quote, this guy, Frank Zappa, a musician, he's comparing the mind to a parachute. It's a comparison. This guy is comparing the mind to the mouth. It's a comparison. Both of them are comparisons. Neither of them is true. Neither of them is an objective fact. Both of them are metaphors. But notice how a metaphor can tilt your mind in one direction or the other. So whenever you read books, whenever you watch a movie, notice how the writers and the artists are trying to use metaphors to push your mind in one direction or the other. I believe openness has its time and place, and being closed has its time and place. So there is a time in your life when the right thing to do is to stop being open, is to become closed to external feedback and to focus on whatever it is you want to focus on, whether it's your goal, whether it's a plan that no one agrees with. You don't always have to remain open. The mistake about openness is always a virtue, and the truth is, it can also be a vice. Another quote which we might get into later. All right, data. Data is the new oil. Who agrees with that? Data, the more data, the better. People love data now, right? The mistake about data is that big data is better than small intuition. And let me try to explain to you why that is. Again, some screenshots. Big data, getting bigger every day. Data scientists earn a lot. As you can see on the chart on the top right. The chart on the bottom left is about data centers. So the green chart that you see shooting up, that is the energy that data centers are consuming. So as you can see, it's going up over time. Data centers are opening all around the world. AI is the big new thing. AI requires a lot of data. We live in a data-saturated world. And that makes people feel like data has all the answers. It makes people feel like all that they need to do is keep gathering more and more and more data and throw it at the laptop, throw it at the computer, throw it at the data center, and truth will come out. I disagree. I don't think it quite works like that. Again, Harvard Business Review writing about data. The assumption is the more data, the better the decisions. Not exactly true. And let's listen about, yeah, so that's Napoleon. I told you I'll bring him up. Very popular, king in France, the most successful, objectively speaking, the most successful military general ever. He was more successful than Julius Caesar and Alexander the Great. So he won 92% of his battles. There's an interesting quote I found from Napoleon when I was reading a letter that he wrote from his exile. So he was exiled, and he wrote this letter back to one of his old friends. There are men who, because of their physical and moral constitution, tend to schematize everything. Whatever their knowledge, intellect, or courage, nature has not brought them here to command an army. So he's saying that schematizing everything, he's basically talking about big data, creating schemes, creating spreadsheets, analyzing, collecting data, analyzing it, trying to get the data to talk to you. That's the schematics of a war, the schematics of running a country that he's referring to. And he's saying that there are people who schematize everything. They just need data. Show me the data. What's your data? And these people cannot command an army. Because in a war, you actually do not even have the time to look at data. It's your instinct. It's your intuition. So you can train your instinct and your intuition the way you train your mind. And that is what helps you in a tight pressure cooker situation like an actual war. I feel like there are so many times in life when you actually don't have time to go back and make a spreadsheet about it. You don't have time to make a pros and cons table about it. You're down to your instinct. You're down to your gut. I discovered something very interesting a few days ago. Where do we have neurons in our body? Where are the neurons? What do you guys think? Neurons, the brain cells, where are they? They're in the brain, right? I used to think it's all in the brain. But then I discovered there are about 40,000 neurons in the heart. Interesting. So the heart is also a thinking machine. Then I discovered there are 600 million neurons in your gut. So when we say the gut instinct, that's not a random feeling that you're getting. The gut can think on its own. So use your full body, use your instincts, use your intuition. Sometimes in a pressure cooker situation, that's all you will have. Big data is better than small intuition. That's the mistake. I believe the truth is the other way around. Small intuition can often beat data. The mistake about beauty. OK, 5 minutes left, so let's try to wrap it up. Utility matters more than beauty, right? A thing has to be useful. Look at this quote. Ornament is something that must be overcome. So this was an aesthetic theorist. He wrote that in a 1913 essay. Ornamentation, right? The jacket I'm wearing is sort of ornamented. It doesn't have to be this colorful, right? And this guy is saying that ornamentation is something useless. It should be thrown away. It needs to be overcome. Look at these. This is modern aesthetic. Modern buildings look like that. Your coffee cup this morning probably looked like that. The street lamps, not in Budapest, thankfully, but in most of the world, that's what the street lamps look like. And this is a normal handheld mirror. And the philosophy behind these things is that throw away the ornament, throw away the beauty, overcome it, stick to the actual function of the thing. But this wasn't always how we created things. So there are buildings in the world, many of them here, which do look like the building on the right. There are old coffee cups which look like that. There are old street lamps, and that's how they look. There are some Victorian mirrors, handheld mirrors that look like that. And my claim is that these are the only things that you can develop an emotional connection to. So people love to talk about environmental sustainability. How can a thing be sustainable if it's not loved? Okay, so no matter how eco-friendly that mirror on the left is, if I'm not willing to pass it on to someone, if a mother isn't willing to pass it on to her daughter, and the daughter to her daughter, it's not sustainable. And even if this creates a little more pollution while manufacturing, it will last 10 times as often, 10 times as long. And that is what makes something sustainable. This is a question. Which of them is likelier to be a family heirloom? I think the one on the right. And there are some beautiful quotes here. This is again from the same guy. Pragmatism is a matter of human needs. And one of the first human needs is to be more than a pragmatist, right? We actually want to be romantics. We want to develop an emotional connection with buildings and with the objects that we are surrounded by. And this is a modern mistake that we are making, that utility is all that matters. In fact, the truth is that beauty is the ultimate utility. The mistake about knowledge, all right. When you go to a career fair, when you try to think about what you want to study at university, what career you want to get into, I feel like a lot of the time we tell people to become specialists. Get a bachelor's in political science, then get a master's in political science, then get a PhD in political science. Like you go deeper and deeper and deeper into one domain. I think that's a mistake. And the mistake is that specialists are always better and smarter than generalists. Do you remember this? Trust the experts. From 3 years ago, when people were telling you to take the vaccine because you should trust the experts because they're specialists. They've specially studied microbiology and medicine for 20 years, and you should leave aside your instinct and your thinking because you're just a generalist and therefore stupid, and you should just trust the experts. I think we see this sort of idea everywhere in modern society, and that's not exactly right. It's not something that you should never do. It's not something you should always do. A jack of all trades is a master of none. Your grandmother probably said that to you at some point. Yeah, OK, so I'll probably end with this quote. I have more material, but we're out of time. This guy was an ancient architect, Vitruvius. Have you ever seen that Da Vinci artwork with the Vitruvian man? The man standing like this with a circle around him. So that painting was actually made by Da Vinci after he read Vitruvius. And Vitruvius is describing an architect. He says that an architect should be skillful in drawing, knowledgeable about geometry. He should have followed lectures in philosophy. He should have a knowledge of music. He should not be ignorant of medicine. He should have a command of astronomy. The idea is that the more domains you study, the more of a generalist you become, the more curious you are about unconnected things, the more you can see hidden patterns, the more you can connect dots that other people cannot connect because they've gone so deep in one direction. Again, a great quote. A human being should be able to change a diaper, plan an invasion, butcher a hog, con a ship, design a building, write a sonnet, balance accounts, build a wall, set a bone, comfort the dying, take orders, give orders, cooperate, act alone, solve equations, analyze a problem, pitch manure, program a computer, cook a tasty meal, fight efficiently, die gallantly. Specialization is for insects. This is a great science fiction author, Robert Heinlein. The truth about knowledge is that oftentimes it's better to be a generalist than a specialist. So these are the 5 modern mistakes and the 5 old truths. Power is great for you. Openness can be a vice. Small intuition can be better than big data. Beauty is the ultimate utility. And the more general knowledge you have about the world, the more you can connect dots that other people cannot. Thank you so much. That was my talk, 5 modern mistakes.
Thank you, Jash. Now, some fantastic stuff there.
Thanks.
I'm going to take you over to your hot seat now. And now, guys and gals, ladies and gentlemen, this is your opportunity. You've heard that amazing presentation. This is question time. He's in the hot seat. The microphone can be in your hands. So put your hands up if you want to ask a question. And we've got some roving microphones around. So who's going to ask first question? There's a lady over there who's got a hand up.
Hi, thank you for the presentation. It was really thought-provoking. And I would like to ask about the family heirloom part of the story, because my thought is that I'm not sure that beauty decides what's going to be, passed down and thus make it sustainable. Don't you think that memories and experience play a part in it as well? Because I feel that there are minimalist things around me that I really cherish and love, and not because they are beautiful, but because I have a history with them. What do you think about it?
That's a great question. I think it's notoriously difficult to define beauty. What's beautiful for me might not be beautiful for someone else. But one definition that we might be able to agree upon is that a beautiful thing has more details, right? It has, and when you say that there is something that a minimalist object that you have a memory with, that's an additional detail. So what I was pointing towards was the bland texture of modern things and how they lack detail. But the moment you have an experience that's padded onto the thing, and I feel like detailing is often what makes a thing beautiful. So in its own way, that minimalist thing is beautiful because you've had 10 years with it, and you have 10 memories stacked on top of it.
Does that answer your question? OK, who's next?
I want to think, you talked about that we have forgotten a lot of things, and you mentioned all truths, but do you think why have we forgotten these?
Man, buy my next book. It's very difficult to answer why questions. I think there are different explanations. I think take the beauty thing, just to actually let's take the power thing. Imagine we are the last two people on the planet, right? Imagine there's been a zombie apocalypse, and it's me versus you. It's so beneficial to me if I can convince you that power is bad. If I can convince you that you should stop acquiring power over land and territory and weapons and tools, you are at my mercy. You're vulnerable to me. So I think when people say that, power is bad, you shouldn't seek it out, it's beneficial to the other person if you actually believe it. So I have my suspicion that people badmouth power not out of a sincere belief that you should not be powerful, but it's like a strategy. And it's a competitive world. I want what you want. We probably will compete at some point in the future. It's so beneficial to me if my enemies decide that power is bad. That just gives me more power. So that is a dynamic, that's a psychological dynamic at play, I think, with that. But yeah, I think it's not very evident to me that good things always last. I think there's so much entropy, there's so much, nature is always trying to, this building won't stand after 200 years after. It's not because it's not a good building, it's a great building. But, nature is always trying to throw entropy and disaster at you and earthquakes, and great things just disappear. And I think great truths can also be like that. It's just entropy, time, then there are people who have an incentive to make you believe a lie. It's all of that.
So thank you for your presentation. So my question is, probably like many people in this room, I'm a high school student, so I'll be 18 next month. So what is one book or author in general that you would recommend me read that might have a great impact on my life? Or what is your favorite, apart from Jash Dholani and Hit Reverse, of course?
Friedrich Nietzsche.
Sorry?
Friedrich Nietzsche.
Nietzsche.
He's a German philosopher. Yeah. He's the one. He's the one.
Why do you like him so much?
He thought really, really deeply about the modern world. He lived in the latter half of the 19th century. He wrote books from 1870 to 1890. He isn't that old, actually, just about 130 years old. He was brilliant. Do you guys know Jordan Peterson? Do you like Jordan Peterson?
Oh, yeah.
Yes?
Yeah.
Jordan Peterson said that Nietzsche's IQ was 1 in a billion. So direct quote from Dr. Jordan Peterson. So he's just brilliant. He really tried his best to dig as deep as was humanly possible for him to dig. And I don't think anyone has dug deeper. So the perspective that you get from that guy, you won't get from Hit Reverse or Jash Dholani or anyone else. Like, he's the man.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And a quick question and a quick answer.
Then I pass it on because there is no quick answer to my question. So you mentioned 5 things. First of it is power, and you say power is good. Now, I don't have the full logic for me, but I see power actually transform the other 4. So power tells us that be a specialist, use data, forget beauty. I see some contradiction here.
Yeah, that's interesting. Why not sort of be a specialist? Why not be a data scientist if that's the fastest way to make a lot of money? Yeah, that's a good question. I think with a lot of great things, this is a dynamic where there's some internal conflict. But I think if you just zoom out, like, name a data scientist that you remember. Like, name a specialist. What's your favorite specialist? No one remembers specialists. Who's your favorite musician? Do you have one? Yeah, everyone has a favorite musician, right? So I think with things like these, where if you zoom into the future, maybe the powerful thing to do for the next 2 years as high schoolers should probably be to study big data. You'll probably make a lot of money if you do that. But the more you zoom out, the more these things become allies, the more these things come together.
Jash, thank you.
Thank you.
Please put your hands together and give a big round of applause to Jash Dholani.
Thank you, guys.